Welcome back. You're listening to the second hour of the weekend edition of the Cortland Economics Report. You know, I had a really interesting time back in New York last week. Went to the Hard Assets Conference, which was at the Marriott Marquis, which is literally 200 or 300 feet off of Times Square. Really had a good time. It was really a pleasure interacting with some of you during my presentation on Tuesday. We had a good time. We really did. I've got Jonathan Moore with me right now. Jonathan is the purveyor, is that the right word?
Sure, we can use
There
that.
you go, of the Hard Asset Conference. He and his colleagues are doing a great job in terms of providing some really valuable education to the folks who attend this particular conference. Jonathan, let's talk about, your next conference is going to be in Chicago. It's going to be the 21st and 22nd of September. It's going to be at the Convention Center. We're going to be back there, really looking forward to it. What can people expect to see in Chicago that perhaps they didn't see here in New York?
Well, for first things, it's the first time we've been to Chicago, so
Understand.
that audience will have, for the first time, the opportunity to experience how we do events at IIC, and I know you've been here longer than I have, so you know it well.
There are advantages and disadvantages.
The model that we bring is, I think, unique. We're an event that solely focuses on the hard asset component of the marketplace. We bring together a unique mix of industry experts talking about prevailing economic trends, talking about trends in individual stocks and individual commodities, and we wrap that around an exposition hall where companies come and talk about their current projects and exploration opportunities and investment opportunities for those that are in attendance. And we also have presentations from some of those corporations up on the dais talking about, here's what we have going on, here's why we might be an attractive opportunity for an individual investor within the audience.
You know, one thing that I stress on our program, Jonathan, which you've been doing for a long time now, is people have to do their own due diligence. You know, if you rely on a single, let's say, newsletter writer, or if you rely on a single stockbroker to make your investment decisions in this particular sector of the market, you're crazy in my opinion. I really think you have to, as I mentioned in my presentation today, I think you really have to get as many opinions as you possibly can, you know, and then come to your own conclusion. Now, when you're looking to invest in companies, the one advantage of coming to an IIC program, for example, is that you can actually sit down face to face with the management of the various companies that you may or may not be interested in. I mean, you guys get a lot of exhibitors here. If you have any ability to read body language, if you have any ability to read people, this is a great place to come and learn about a company, because you got these guys or gals one-on-one.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately becomes what makes this format work.
No question.
Take the opportunity to listen to, as you say, a dozen industry experts, get their opinions, and then go and do your own diligence, talk to an individual company CEO, get inside his head, ask the questions that you wouldn't be able to ask through their IR department or things that you're not going to find on their website. And I think that combination of being able to, put the flesh together is ultimately what makes events work, but this one in particular work especially well.
Oh, I would agree 100%. Now, one of the things that's very interesting about this particular conference group, not conference, but conference group, is they do 3 major shows in the United States. We get the one in New York that we're attending right now. They do one in the upcoming show in Chicago, and then they also do one in San Francisco, which is also a great show. But you also do, if I'm not mistaken, and I know I'm not on this one, a major show down in South Africa.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
It's called the Investing in African Mining in Daba. Again, a unique value proposition relative to other events that are out in the marketplace, in that we solely focus on the investment angle, and it's specific to projects that are ongoing on the continent of Africa. So mining companies that have projects that they're working on in South America or Europe or Australia, we don't include that in the content for this event. It has to be about things that are taking place on the continent of Africa. Very interesting dynamic with respect to very senior investors, corporate CEOs, same type of industry experts that we have here as far as what's happening on the continent in Africa, and that dynamic, very similar to this, of bringing those individuals together and letting them interact on one-to-one basis and throughout 4 days in Cape Town, South Africa.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the audience here in the United States, whether it's Chicago, San Francisco, or New York, you primarily have a North American audience here. I know here in New York you get a lot of folks come down from Canada. I'm sure the same thing is going to happen in Chicago as it does in San Francisco, but Indaba, I would think, would have a much more international flavor to it. Am I correct?
100%.
Yeah.
The domestic-based shows are very much North American focused. U.S. and Canada. We pull a little bit from south of the border, but for the most part, it's North America. The Indaba is truly a global event. Strong representation from Europe, from Asia, Australia, obviously, and then across the continent. I think we had 47 government delegations in attendance this year. That came in quantity. So it's a very interesting event, very different, much more focused on the professional investor as opposed to the retail investor. Although we do get very high-end retail investors in addition to the professionals.
Give me an example, if you would. I have not been to Indaba. Give me an example, if you would, of your roster of speakers there.
Sure. From the corporate side, it's the Cynthia Carrolls of the world. We get the top executives from the mining companies. So we had Anglo, Rio Tinto, BHP, all the big names on that front. And then on the professional side, it's some of the same folks that you see here. So Frank Holmes has been a frequent speaker of ours on the international front. We've had Niall Ferguson, David Hale. So similar in that respect. And then we have a component of the program that are dedicated to the ministers of mines from all the countries in South Africa. So we'll get the Ministry of Mines from Ghana and from the DRC to come and talk about what's happening within their region as it relates to investment and why outside investors should feel confident in the investment opportunities that exist within their country.
I had a very, very interesting experience on the show. We have a publicist who basically feeds us an awful lot of our guests. And she lined up a gentleman from, I believe it was Chicago for me, who runs the only fund in the world, or the only fund in the United States, that invests solely in African companies. And I asked him how he did, because I don't really know a lot about investing over there. Okay, but so how do you do, And he said, we are, in terms of a fund that specializes in emerging companies, we're like rated number 2 in the world, from Morningstar. I said, well, in South Africa, it's got to be primarily mining companies, I would think. And he said, no. He said, we have an awful lot of mining companies, but he said, some of the South African banks are incredible investments, which I thought was very, very interesting. But obviously your show would focus entirely on the mining industry because your guys are mining, it's a mining show.
It does, but when you think about the mining investment and component of it, certainly the banking side of it is there, and Nedbank and ABSA are big sponsors of ours. Standard Bank is a big sponsor. So they're actively involved in it. Anytime there's a transaction, there's a banking component that has to be brought along with that. So yeah, they've done very well for themselves, very savvy, and it doesn't surprise me that that's a critical component of his portfolio.
Got about a minute left here. The next show coming up, this one's winding down. We've only got a few hours left. The next show coming up, 21st and 22nd of September. Give our listeners specifics on that one, if you would.
Sure. Similar lineup as far as the quality of the speakers that we have. Very delighted to have you on that one as well.
Always a pleasure.
It's exciting because, again, we haven't been to Chicago. We haven't been able to gather this universe of people that frequently speak with us at that show. So we're anticipating a good event. We're off to a very strong start with response on the sponsor and exhibit side. All our speakers are pretty much lined up. You can visit our website at hardassets.chi.com. And have all the details on that as well.
And we're going to make it real easy for you. We will put a banner for the Chicago show coming up within a week or so. Any information that you want regarding that show, you can get simply by clicking on that banner. Jonathan, always a pleasure. We thoroughly enjoy coming to your shows. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Al. Appreciate it.